Now let's move to the second fact scenario, which is centered on the corporate internal policy. So another partner from the corporate section of your firm, John, who is the lead legal advisor to FaceNote, the client, in most of its internal corporate matters. So we'll walk through three issues under this fact scenario. The first one was that John had advised the client to store all its data in an unsecured cloud hosted in an Eastern Europe country so that no authority could track down the data. However, this ultimately led to the leakage of the user's private messages. Secondly, John had followed the client instruction and had prepared its internal data retention policy so that all the data was stored overseas on the assumption that it cannot be subpoenaed in Australia. And the purpose is really to defend the client's case if it is accused of making commercial use of the user's data. And the last issue was really a question for us as lawyers. So later on, it came to your knowledge that there were actually a number of correspondence between John and the Chief Information Officer of the client, which evidenced that there was instruction regarding the internal data retention policy and the real purpose behind it. So what would you do? There are two main duties that John had breached by advising the client to use an unsecured cloud. The first is a duty of competence under Solicitor's Conduct Rule 4.1.3, and the other is a duty of care under the Civil Liability Act. Also, the standard of professional service was defined in the case law Hayden and NRMA, in which the court said the standards can vary according to a lawyer's professed level of expertise. So in this case, it is difficult to argue that John had acted in a manner that would be accepted by other lawyers. And also, given that he is a very senior partner in the corporate section of the law firm, it's hard to argue that his legal advice or service has met his professed level of expertise. In the next issue, John has acted as the hired guns and followed closely on the client's instruction to prepare the data retention policy. The hired guns legal advisors are very similar to the type of adversarial lawyers. These are the lawyers who take advantage of the forms and letter of the law rather than the spirit or intent, so as to maximize the client's narrowly defined interests. On the other end of the spectrum, there's actually an option to become wise counselors. Wise counselors are lawyers who advise corporate clients in a more independent way, and also are lawyers who mediate between the private interests of the corporation and the regulatory interests of the state. By acting as the hired guns, John has also breached the duty of independence of lawyer, as well as his duty to the court and administration of justice. The last issue was really a question for all the fellow students. In the case where John told you not to disclose any of the correspondence between himself and the client, what would you do? How would you voice your value? Firstly, you can talk about the legal ramification. John could be found professional misconduct if he chooses to intervene in the court process under Uniform Law Section 297.2. There was also case law McCabe, where the lawyers were found professional misconduct in a very similar situation. There was also risk to the principles of the firm under the Uniform Law Section 34. The counter-argument was that we can't afford to lose a big client as FaceNote. However, you can draw the attention to the partners that by doing this, it could raise questions with other big corporate clients as to the capability and the culture the law firm represents.